Ethan got called into a classroom because a professor said his lectures were disappearing. In front of 2 grad assistants, she pointed at him like he had pockets full of stolen USB drives. He stood there in his navy janitor shirt with his name stitched on it, and the whole room felt like a trial. When she finally led him back behind the podium to check the projector, his hand hit something wedged in the metal bracket. He had been wiping down room 3B21 at North Lake University in Minneapolis, the kind of lecture hall that always smelled faintly of dry erase markers and cold coffee. The projector was one of those ceiling-mounted units with a security cage, and the remote never stayed where it was supposed to. Ethan dragged a step stool over, clicked on his headlamp, and found a tiny black USB drive shoved behind the cage, pressed so flat it looked like part of the hardware. He slid it out with 2 fingers, felt the warm dust on it, and for a second he just stared at the scratched plastic like it might bite him. He did what he always did with lost stuff. He walked it to the front desk of facilities and asked the admin, Marisol, to log it. She squinted at it and said, "Another one. People lose these like socks." Ethan almost laughed, but then his phone buzzed with a text from that same professor. "If you took anything from my room, return it now." He felt his face go hot again. On his lunch break, he went back to room 3B21 to double-check the cage. He did not want another accusation. When he looked closer, he noticed the drive had a strip of clear tape on one side, and under the tape was a handwritten hint, just 4 words and a date. Not a name, not a number, something that looked like it meant a lot to whoever wrote it. That was the first tiny gain, proof it was not random trash. The first setback came 10 minutes later when campus safety called and asked him to come downstairs because someone had reported a possible theft. Campus safety was in the basement near the loading dock, past the vending machines that $8. Officer Ramirez met him at the door, calm but blunt. "Ethan, we need to talk about a report from faculty." Ethan kept his hands visible on purpose, like he was at the airport. He explained the projector cage, the dust, the tape, the log at facilities. Ramirez nodded, then asked the question that made Ethan swallow hard. "Did you plug it in anywhere?" Ethan said no because he had not. That was true. Still, the officer asked him to write a statement. They walked to a small office with a scanner and a locked cabinet. Ethan watched Ramirez bag the USB in a clear evidence sleeve and label it found property. That should have lowered the pressure, but it did the opposite because now it was official and official things moved slowly. 2 days passed. The professor did not apologize. In the hallway, she gave him a look that said he was still on probation in her mind. Meanwhile, rumors started. Another janitor joked in the break room that Ethan was probably mining Bitcoin on the side. Someone else said, "If that drive has money on it, you will never see a dime." Ethan tried to ignore it, but he felt the hook in his stomach every time he walked past room 3B21. Then Marisol pulled him aside at the end of a shift. "Campus IT wants to see you." Ethan thought it was going to be another lecture about policy. Instead, in the IT office on the 3rd floor, a security analyst named Dev said the drive was encrypted and the label under the tape looked like a password hint. Dev said it like he was reading weather. Ethan heard the word encrypted and immediately imagined trouble. Dev added one more thing. It might be a backup for a digital wallet. Real money kind of wallet. Ethan felt the room get smaller. The second mini-climax hit when Dev asked him to sign a form that said he would not attempt access on his own and that all handling would be documented. Ethan signed fast, not because he was scared of getting caught, but because he was scared of being blamed for something he did not do. The third mini-climax came when Dev said, "Before we do anything, we need to notify legal and the property office. If this belongs to a student, it is sensitive. If it is abandoned, it still gets handled a certain way." Ethan walked out of that office thinking about the tape and the 4 words and the date, and about how someone had jammed it behind a projector like they were hiding it from the world. The next week turned into waiting punctuated by little jolts. Ethan got called in twice to confirm details, like which stair he stood on and whether he wore gloves. Felt absurd, but he understood why. A drive like that could carry anything. Dev showed him a photo on a monitor taken through a forensic reader. The USB had a single container file and a small text file with the same 4 words and date. No other documents. No class materials. No photos. That was another twist because it did not look like someone forgot a school project. It looked like someone stashed a single thing. They brought in the university property manager, a woman named Susan Klein, and a lawyer from the general counsel office joined by video call. Ethan sat there like a witness again, except this time nobody acted like he was guilty. Susan asked him a question that surprised him. Ethan, you found it because you do your job carefully. If we locate the owner, you may be eligible for a finder fee under university policy. It was not a promise, but it was the first time the system sounded like it might treat him fairly. Dev explained how they would approach the encrypted container. No clever tricks. No breaking anything. First, they would try to identify the owner through normal channels. Campus card access logs, classroom cameras, and the schedule for that room. Ethan pictured the ceiling camera he had never paid attention to. Dev said the footage showed a student worker from media services adjusting the projector cage 2 months earlier. He had paused under the mount longer than usual. Ethan heard the name of the student, Tyler Mendez, and felt another jolt because Tyler was someone he recognized. Tyler used to come by facilities to borrow a ladder. Always polite, always in a hurry. The mini-climax came when Susan tried calling Tyler and got a disconnected number. Then she searched the student directory and saw Tyler had withdrawn mid-semester. No forwarding contact. Another twist. They decided the next step would be a careful attempt to unlock the backup, but only after the university filed a report with Minneapolis police as found property of potential value. Ramirez took the paperwork over. A notary in the admin building stamped Ethan's original statement and the chain of custody form. Ethan watched the stamp press into paper and thought about how his whole life ran on time cards and cleaning schedules, and now he was part of a process with signatures and legal language. That afternoon, Dev asked Ethan one more thing. If we try the hint, we need context. Were the words readable? Were they exact? Ethan said them out loud, slowly, and watched Dev type them into a notes field, then lock it behind a case number. Ethan left and tried to sleep that night, but his mind kept returning to the projector cage and the idea that a small piece of plastic could carry a fortune or a felony. 2 weeks later, Dev called Ethan back in and told him to come alone. In the IT lab, Dev looked tired in a way that meant he had been careful, not reckless. Susan was there too, and Ramirez stood near the door with his arms crossed. Not threatening, just present. Dev said, "We made progress, but it is not clean." The hint worked halfway. It did not open the wallet backup directly, but it unlocked an inner note that pointed to a longer password pattern. It also contained a public address and a timestamp like a breadcrumb trail. Dev said they did not guess randomly. They used the hint, then they ran a limited, logged password attempt process approved by legal. Ethan did not ask for details and Dev did not offer them. The point was permission and documentation. The first mini-climax of that day was when Dev turned the monitor toward Ethan and showed him a balance, not dollars, but a number that could be converted. Ethan's throat went dry. It was enough money to change someone's year, maybe their life, but not so much that it would make the news. Susan said it out loud in plain language. This is likely tens of thousands, depending on the market. Ethan stared at the screen and then at his hands, like he expected them to shake. The second mini-climax came right after when Dev said, "There are signs this wallet has not been touched in over a year. No recent transactions." That leaned the whole situation toward lost rather than active criminal use. Ramirez added another hard fact. "We ran the name Tyler Mendez. No warrants. Nothing obvious. But we still need to treat it as property that belongs to someone unless proven otherwise." The third mini-climax was the weirdest. Dev said there is a second file in the backup. Not illegal content, but identity documents. A scanned driver license and a utility bill. Not Tyler's. Someone else's. Ethan felt that old fear return. The fear of being near something that could splash on him. Susan's voice stayed steady. "This is why we did not let this walk around untracked. We are going to locate the person on those documents." For the next few days, Ethan lived in a low-grade panic. He kept working, kept mopping hallways, but every time his phone buzzed, he expected trouble. Then Susan emailed him from her official account and asked him to meet at the property office. Ethan walked in and saw a man in his 30s sitting across from her with his hands clasped, eyes red like he had not slept. The man introduced himself, Daniel Rios, and said he used to work for a campus vendor that serviced AV equipment. Daniel explained, talking fast and then stopping to swallow. He had moved apartments, lost a box, and later realized the USB backup was gone. He had tried to recover it, failed, and then assumed it was stolen. The documents in the wallet backup were from his old roommate who had helped him set up the backup years ago. It sounded messy and human, not like a scheme. Ethan listened and waited for the part where he got blamed. Instead, Daniel looked at Ethan and said, "I owe you an apology for whoever accused you. If you had not found it, it would be gone forever." The university did not just hand Daniel a USB and wish him luck. Susan required proof. Daniel brought printed bank statements showing the original purchase of the hardware wallet, emails from an exchange confirming an old account, and a police report he had filed months earlier for missing property. Ramirez compared dates and case numbers. A notary in the same building verified Daniel's identity and watched him sign a receipt acknowledging the return and the chain of custody. Ethan watched all of it, partly relieved, partly irritated that his name had been dragged through suspicion while the real owner had been dealing with his own mess. Then the ethical dilemma landed, not as a temptation, but as an awkward conversation. Daniel said he wanted the university to just unlock it and transfer the funds to him. Legal said no. They could not move funds for him. What they could do was return the backup and provide documentation of their actions. Dev offered to sit with Daniel while he regained access using his own devices, right there in the lab, so the university could confirm the case was closed without touching the money. The first mini-climax was watching Daniel actually get in. His hands shook while he typed, wiped his palms on his jeans, typed again. The screen changed, the wallet interface loaded, and Daniel made a noise that was half laugh, half breath. He did not move any funds. He just stared like he was looking at a bruise that finally stopped hurting. The second mini-climax came from the reaction around Ethan. The professor who had accused him got an email summary from Susan and showed up in facilities later that day. She did not say sorry. She said, "I guess that worked out." Ethan nodded once and went back to his cart. Marisol saw the look on his face and muttered, "People hate being wrong." That simple line felt like validation without turning into a speech. The third mini-climax was the money part, the part everyone had been whispering about. University policy allowed a small compensation for finders when property of significant value was returned and documented. Daniel also asked Susan if he could personally thank Ethan, and Susan allowed it as long as it was voluntary and recorded as a gift. Daniel handed Ethan a cashier's check from a local credit union for a few $1,000s. Not crazy, just meaningful. Ethan hesitated, then accepted with Susan and the notary watching the endorsement. It was clean, legal, and still felt unreal when the paper touched his fingers. Ethan walked out with the check folded in his wallet, feeling like every eye in the hallway could see it, and his phone buzzed with a message from Dev. "One more thing. We found out who put the USB behind the projector. Media Services has his new contact." Ethan stopped walking. The student worker was not a villain. Tyler Mendez met Susan and Ramirez a week later and explained that he had found the USB lodged in the projector cage during a service call. He assumed it belonged to Daniel, the vendor tech, and hid it temporarily so it would not get swept up or stolen while he finished another task. Then Tyler got sick, missed shifts, and eventually withdrew from school. The small decision turned into months. Ethan heard that and felt two things at once, annoyance and relief. It was just human error stacked on top of other human error. Ethan deposited the check at his credit union on Lake Street. The teller asked where it came from and he said, "A weird campus thing." He used some of it to pay off a chunk of an old credit card, and the rest went to something he had wanted for years but always pushed aside. A better PC. His old tower wheezed when he tried to update anything. He bought a mid-range build from a local shop, not flashy, just solid. And for the first time in a long time he did not feel behind the curve every time something needed doing online. The aftertaste of the whole thing stuck around in quieter ways. The professor stopped looking through him, but she never became friendly. Dev started nodding at him in the hallway like they were on the same team. Susan sent a short email saying his professionalism had been noted in his file, which sounded small until you work a job where nobody notices anything unless it goes wrong. Ethan did not walk away thinking life was suddenly fair. He walked away knowing that being careful mattered, that paperwork mattered, and that doing the right thing did not always mean losing. The projector in room 3B21 still hung from the ceiling, humming like it always did. But every time Ethan rolled his cart into that room, he looked up at the cage and felt the same steady thought. Person can get blamed fast. A person can also get their name cleared the same way, with facts and patience and the kind of boring honesty that holds up when everyone starts talking.